Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Paint, Sip, and Relationship. Hi, my name is Rin Congrejo, and my co-star here is Mr. Bryson Capalini. How you doing, Bryson?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really well.
Awesome. So, what brings us here tonight?
Well, we got married recently, so that brings us here. How about that?
Yes, it's always a comedy with us and the things that we do.
True, very
Mm,
true. So,
mm.
with it being, sip paint relationships, and the title of this episode is Love Over Everything Else. What does that mean to you?
In a relationship, you have to, you may not like each other, and it's okay because there are going to come times that you get on each other's nerves.
Mm,
But what the sticking power is the love that you have for one another. And through that love, you've got to understand how to respect each other, how to give each other space and time, and really understand and listen to what somebody's saying and not getting in your feelings because nine times out of 10, we all do that. We get into our own selves because we don't like what somebody else is telling us. And instead of taking offense to it, we really should start listening to our spouses or to our partners and really kind of trying to understand it from their point of view and seeing exactly what the need is and the want is there in order to lift them back up. Because to me, when you love somebody, it's really not about you. Because if you spend time doing for each other daily, you forget about yourself. You become very selfless. So let me see how I can outlove you today. So if I'm worried about how I can outlove you today or how I can please you today, it doesn't leave that room for that error of us nitpicking at each other. We're actually seeing each other for who we are. And because of that, we start to respect each other and have a deeper understanding. And what happens is people just allow little things to come into their relationship instead of saying, you know what, is this worth fighting over or is this worth XYZ? Because if I love this person enough, I love this person to understand him and to talk to her, and give her what she needs instead of being that selfish person and just taking what it is that you need yourself. How do you feel about that?
so you basically saying you got to stick and stay.
I hate that. I
Shout
hate.
out to Cecil, CJ. Stick and stay. Yeah. But no, I mean,
Uh,
yes, I mean, at the same time, it's gonna be times where you're gonna get on each other's nerves, you know, but what about all the other good times? And not even that. There could be, I guess when you say listen, not listen to respond, but listen to understand, right? So being able to listen to what your partner, significant other is saying or trying to communicate to you rather than just listening so that you can have your answer ready to rebuttal back. I mean, it's just like that's normally what happens where we so not listening to what you're saying because we're too quickly trying to find what the next thing we're going to bring up or the next point we're trying to make that we missed the whole point. Um, and I mean, to me, that's just it's important. The communication piece is important, but then also to try to reflect on why you guys got here in the first place, right? So when I say that, it's more so like, um, for example, just the fact that we're here now. Okay, we've been together X amount of years or months or whatnot, and it hasn't been, peaches and cream all the time, but we've made it through. And I think a lot of times of what we're seeing now with the way that things are in this world is just so quick to just say, oh well, any sense of struggle or any sense of things aren't going the way that I anticipated it to go, so I'm out. I'm done. you know, how do you grow in a relationship when you're so quick to leave? So that would be my next question to you, or your thoughts on that, as far as staying in something to work it through, or at least trying to work it through, versus just the first time you see something, you're just out.
Well, I think I had a conversation I brought up with you. I was watching something on, I don't know. It had to be on the computer because I don't watch TV all that often. But, and it was a couple, and it was one of the things where the guy asked him how long they'd been married, and I think it was like 40 something years. And he asked him, he says, "So, how did you last?" And the guy, and it wasn't even the woman, it was the guy. He said, "We took divorce off the table." He said, which made it to the point that everything we understood, that we had that safe place, that we could have a conversation, and there was no judgment. There was no talking over one another. They would talk, one would talk at a time, and then, if the other one had questions, they would answer and kind of have this dialogue. And because they had a dialogue, it stopped all the tension, and it stopped all the yelling and the fighting and all of that. Because when you start yelling and fighting, you're really not listening to each other. You're just listening basically to yourself, and you're more worried about getting your own point across, instead of really understanding that person, that's who you really wanted to be with. Now, I will say there are different situations in where you would get a divorce. Okay. And those are just the boundaries that you have set. My boundaries may be different than somebody else's boundaries, but if it's something that I can work through, and we can work through, and we're willing to work together, then that's going to make it that much better. And that's when really the love of a marriage and a love of a relationship starts, is because when you're able to go through those hard times and you can make those decisions to stick with it no matter what, then you're always going to win. Most people today, even when I listen to, my grandparents, or the people that I've been around with, because I've had some really good mentors on that. um, my parents were divorced, but what I learned is they worked together. Everybody had their place. And I'm not talking about the man being a man or a woman being a woman. They decided, they sat down and said, "This is where you are, this is where I am. You let me do this, and you let me do that." And when they really started to work together on that, then marriage became easier, and times of battles and hardships became easier, because they knew what role they played in that, and how they could actually help each other get through. So I don't think you should be so quick to, you see something that you don't like, because let's face it, unless you're married a month or two after you meet, if you're any time together, you're going to see some of those qualities come out. So you have to kind of look and say, "Oh, well, wait a minute. At one point, I haven't changed. So at one point, you love those qualities, and now you're trying to say you don't like those qualities and you want to
Hmm.
run." So to me, no, you didn't like those qualities in the first place. So you've got to be able to love that person, flaws and all, because everybody has them. Nobody's perfect. And so when you come to realize that, and if somebody can love you for your flaws, then you really, to me, it's all about looking inward. Because if you're judging that person, then technically you're judging yourself on something that you don't like in yourself, and therefore you're putting that onto somebody else. So I think it's very important that you vet the person that you're going to marry, because you want that to last. And if that means you go through a season, winter, spring, summer, fall, to see that, then that's what you do. But once you're in it, set your boundaries, know what those are, because you and I have both talked about cheating, and we know how we are with cheating. If those boundaries aren't crossed, then to me, anything can be worked out. It's just all, again, in not being the selfish person and saying, "I want to get my point across." It's more about listening to understand and not to speak.
Hmm. So do you feel like in SL, that same rule can apply?
I do.
Because
I do. I've seen. We have friends that have been married in this game for a very long time.
hmm
And we've asked them, what does it take? Because really, when you're in SL, a lot of the people that we know have never really seen each other, or they've seen each other. They're married in real life, but they're married in game to other people, and they make it work. But
right,
again, it's about loving that person over and over and over and over again and respecting that person. I think it's more of the respecting that person and who they are that literally gets them over.
that is true. That is very true. But then there are times when we say love over everything else, but you also got to remember to love yourself. You also got to remember that if it's hurting you, sometimes you have to put yourself first. It's nice and it's cute and it's sweet and all that to, I'm doing this for him or I'm doing this for her, and but how many times are you going to take the back seat to situations where you know you should be considering your own feelings first?
So when you say something like that, again, that has to do with boundaries. Everybody has to know what their boundaries are in a relationship. Um, everybody, I don't think you should get into a relationship to that person to me is an added benefit.
Right.
So you don't complete me. I complete myself. Okay. I know who I am. I know what I want. And if you can't come with that mentality, if you can't add to my life, then I really don't need you. And I think that's the problem that a lot of people have is that they want a certain type of relationship, but they go about it the wrong way.
hmm
Okay? And so my thing is until you fully heal, right? Then you're going to repeat the same thing that you were doing before. You're going to end up with the same guy and just with a different face.
Right.
So until you really, and I tell people this all the time, until you date yourself and you find out your likes, your dislikes, and you really truly understand yourself, then you don't need to get in a relationship because you're wasting another person's time and effort. You don't need to do that.
That is true. That's very
Okay.
true.
So, yes, you do need to love yourself. Yes, you do need to have the confidence in yourself. But I also know how to date myself. And my thing is, if you can't meet me on my level of date, then no, we don't even have half a chance.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, again, it's always a pleasure to have these different topics that we go over and discuss because I feel like it reaches different people. Um, it really does. I mean, it covers a lot of ground. So I am so thankful to have you on the show, anchoring the show, coming with the topics, coming with that vibe and energy, because again, it is sip, paint, and relationships, and we talk about it all. So I enjoy that definitely.
Me too. And thank you. It's been amazing, as always.
Yes, and we are definitely going to continue. If there's any topics that you guys like to cover, please feel free to reach out to us, either Bryson Capalini or Rain Congrejo in World, and let us know because we definitely love to cover those topics as well.
Thank you. And have a awesome day, night, evening, wherever you are in the world.
You as well.
Bye.